What if I told you there's an ancient story that's basically a roadmap for the biggest challenges we all face today? It sounds kind of wild, right? But that's exactly the promise of this incredible chapter in the Quran called Surah Al-Kahf, which means the chapter of the cave. So in this explainer, we're going to dive in and really unpack its timeless wisdom. So what's the secret sauce here? What makes this chapter so powerful? Well, it all comes down to its structure. It's built around these four core stories, and each one, it's like a case study for a fundamental trial of human life. Seriously, you can think of it as a timeless guide for getting through our biggest struggles. All right, so what exactly are these huge, universal trials? The chapter lays them out really clearly for us. It gives us a framework to understand not just these ancient stories, but our own lives, right here, right now. Okay, here they are. The chapter lays out four great trials that, let's be honest, everyone faces in some way or another. The trial of faith, the trial of wealth, the trial of knowledge, and of course, the trial of power. And the cool part is, each story we're going to look at isn't just some old tale. Nope, it's a blueprint, a guide for how to get through these massive challenges. All right, let's dive right in. We're going to start with the first two, which are all about our internal battles. The stuff that goes on inside our own heads and hearts. We're talking about what we truly believe and the stuff we own. Right off the bat, the chapter gives us these two stories that are like night and day. On one side, you've got the people of the cave, these young believers who literally ran for their lives to protect their faith from all this societal pressure. And on the other side, a super wealthy guy whose success and prosperity made him completely arrogant. So the people of the cave, this was a group of young people, right? And they basically chose their beliefs over their own safety. They refused to go along with the idolatry of their time, the worship of things other than the one true God. So they hid out in a cave, and then something amazing happens. God puts them to sleep for over 300 years. Their story is just this incredible testament to having conviction. It shows that real protection comes from holding on to your faith, even when it feels like the whole world is against you. And then, in complete contrast, you have the story of the rich guy. His incredible wealth made him so arrogant that he started doubting God, doubting the afterlife. He thought he did it all himself. And just like that, poof, he lost everything in an instant. This verse from the chapter really hits it home. All that stuff, all that material wealth, it comes and goes. But good deeds and being humble, that's what actually lasts. Okay, so the chapter moves on from these inner struggles to our external challenges. Because, once you've figured out what's going on inside, you have to deal with the outside world, how you use the knowledge you have and the power you might get. And this brings us to one of the most fascinating stories in the whole chapter, maybe in any scripture. It's the journey of the prophet Moses with this mysterious figure named Al-Khidra, a wise man who has this special, God-given knowledge. Their whole story boils down to one huge question. What are the limits of what we can actually understand? It's all about how there's often this hidden wisdom behind things that, to us, just look, confusing, or maybe even totally wrong. So the story plays out through these three really strange events. Now Moses, who's incredibly knowledgeable himself, promises Al-Khair he'll follow along and not ask any questions. But, he just can't help himself. First up, Al-Khair goes and puts a hole in a boat that belongs to some poor fisherman. Moses is just stunned. Why on earth would he do that? And then things get even more intense. Really disturbing. They come across a young boy, and Al-Khidr, he takes the boy's life. Now, Moses is absolutely horrified. How could anyone harm an innocent child? And for the final piece of the puzzle, they get to a town where the people are just awful to them. They won't even give them food or water. But despite that, Al-Khidr sees a wall that's about to fall down and he just rebuilds it for free. At this point, Moses has had it. He's reached his breaking point and he needs to know what is going on. And then, finally, Al-Khidr explains everything. That boat he damaged, he did it to save it. A tyrannical king was coming through and stealing every perfect boat he could find. That young boy, he would have grown up to be a monster who made his good, righteous parents miserable. And the wall? It was protecting a hidden treasure that belonged to two little orphans. The lesson here is just so deep. True knowledge isn't about knowing everything. It's about understanding that we don't see the whole picture. This brings us to the last big one, the trial of power. And this is represented by a leader called Dhul Qarnayn. Now, he's not just some king. The story paints him as the ideal, just, and righteous leader, someone who uses all of his incredible power for good.
So Dulgarnain travels all over the world, and he finds his community that's being terrorized by these destructive forces called Gog and Magog. Now, what does he do? He doesn't just conquer them. Instead, he gets them organized, uses his skills and their help to build a huge protective barrier. And after pulling off this amazing achievement, he takes zero credit for it. He just says, "This is a mercy from my Lord." It's the ultimate example that real power is a trust from God, and it's meant to be used for justice.
Okay, so we've walked through these 4 incredible stories. What's the takeaway? What's the big message that ties it all together? It really boils down to this one simple but super profound idea. It doesn't matter what you're facing, whether it's a crisis of faith like those kids in the cave, or the temptation of money, or realizing you don't know everything, or even dealing with having a lot of power. The solution is always the same. You turn back to sincere faith, and you follow it up with good, righteous actions. And really, the whole chapter builds up to one of its final verses, which just perfectly sums up this entire message. It says that if you hope to meet your Lord, then you need to do good deeds and keep your faith pure, without associating anyone else in his worship. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. I mean, these stories are thousands of years old, right? But the trials they talk about, the pressure on our faith, the pull of wealth, the pride that comes with knowledge, and the ways power can corrupt, doesn't that all feel incredibly modern? So the real question isn't just about what these stories meant back then. It's about what they mean for you and me right now. Which one of these trials are you facing today?